Welcome to the Michigan Early Literacy Collaborative Module. The standard presented in this PowerPoint will focus on RI.K.3. This is one part of the comprehension standards for kindergarten in the Common Core. Reading standards for informational text. This module will provide ways to prompt and support readers by asking them to describe a connection between two individuals, events, ideas, or pieces of information in an informational text, to use a balanced literacy model in the classroom, to check for understanding through formative assessments, to understand the assessment cycle, and to integrate this standard in reading and writing instruction. This picture shows all of the anchor standards in kindergarten. All of them have equal value and must work together. Learning trajectories in kindergarten. A learning trajectory is a natural developmental progression in learning and development. Researchers have been identifying the learning trajectories in reading, spelling, mathematics, and even science. If teachers understand the trajectories, they can identify where students are and what their next levels are, and they can build much more effective lessons. The assessment cycle of testing and the information gathered at data reviews will drive your instruction through various things. How you teach the standard will depend on the time of year. You will build on these anchor standards by establishing your classroom routines and procedures. The curriculum we teach is driven by an assessment cycle. The data from the assessment drives our instruction, revises our strategies to move towards our goals and needs of children. This example is from Minnesota, but the ideas and visual representation of this graphic brings to mind what we do in our room and the level or priority it's given. During the course of a week, please keep in mind these elements of a balanced literacy approach. Our common cores are explicit instruction depending on our grade level and content. Again, our reader's workshop, our writer's workshop, and working with words. Now, when we look at this time frame allotted at the bottom, obviously in kindergarten it is not 120 minutes. But what you're going to be doing as you introduce and launch these things, you will be building stamina through the course of the year. We're driven by data and the need to show AYP in on every student. One way to do this is by setting goals. To have successful readers, you will need to be intentional about your teaching, more concerned with what and when you are teaching as much as how you teach this content. There is more to just a phonics program in a kindergarten classroom. This goal setting takes to heart a balanced literacy approach to your curriculum and daily instruction. The foundation begins with the concepts about print, then phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension, all to be successful readers. Intentional teachers constantly think about goals and outcomes they want for their students and how their instructional decisions move their students towards their goals. Scaffolding strategies help to build connections through learning. They include story starters, visual organizers, and anchor charts. You've got graphic organizers, modeling your acting out stories, and working with a partner. When we look at your ZPD, or Zone of Proximal Development, what it's looking at is the difference between what a learner can do without help and what he or she can do with help and support. When we look at Howard Gardner's theory on multiple intelligences, there are 8 different types of intelligences, and these intelligences guide the way we learn and process information. Very important to keep in mind as you differentiate your instruction in your classroom. What does a gradual release of responsibility model look like? Dr. Douglas Fisher, a professor of language and literacy education at San Diego State University, states that students need to develop their expertise in all aspects of reading and writing. That's including oral language, phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. He also said that we also need to know that the skills of a teacher and how the teacher uses valuable instructional time matters. The gradual release of responsibility model of instruction requires that a teacher shift from assuming all the I do's to the we do's and then to the you do's. This gradual release may occur over a day, a week, or a month, or a year, but it's interesting how all of these pieces put together. The gradual release of responsibility model of instruction has been documented as an effective approach for improving literacy and literacy outcomes for English language learners. It's pretty important stuff. Research also shows that optimal learning is achieved when a teacher uses the gradual release of responsibility model of instruction, from the teaching phase to the I do, the teaching behavior, which is the we do, and the learner behavior, which is the you do. Understanding the standard. When we understand the standard RI.K.3, we want to look at defining it in the terms from the Common Core. With prompting and support, describe the connection between two individuals, ideas, or pieces of information in a text. When we unpack this a little bit, here are some things that you might want to keep in mind. When students can describe the connection between two individuals, events, ideas, or pieces of information in a text, they have opportunities to integrate prior knowledge with text information in order to start building connections. For example, during a read aloud, students can determine the connection between Stella Luna and the bird family by realizing both bats and birds can fly, or that bird mothers and bat mothers care for their babies. When we understand the architect of a mini lesson, over time teachers have found that the most effective mini lessons often follow a familiar structure. The content or focus of the mini lesson often changes, but the global structure or architecture of the mini lesson stays the same. When we look at those pieces, you have your connection, your teach, your active engagement, and your link. Sometimes with your link, you also engage within your sharing piece. Now, your connection to the mini lesson is making a connection to what the students will be learning and how that learning fits in or connects to what they already know. Your teach is where students are taught something they will use in their lives as readers and as writers. Your active engagement, our students are given an opportunity to try out what's been taught. And the sharing in the link is giving students some share time so they can collaborate in what they've learned, find out something interesting, something they've noticed during that independent time, and oftentimes they're shared and connected in a way, but not always. The goal is to facilitate students' growth as readers and writers, and that link kind of brings that all together. Now, the mini lesson that's put together here comparing the two texts are put together in this workshop model. Here's your connection. Begins with a specific reminder of previous learning. State your learning target. Readers, we can tell how people, events, and ideas are connected. Readers, we can begin to understand how things are connected in a story. When we read, our mind is always trying to make connections to things we know. We call this schema. Sometimes we make connections to things by comparing. When we compare something, we become curious about what is the same and what is different. Now here you have your two mentor texts you'll use during the week to compare and contrast. Sometimes you might be interested in using the KWL, what I know, what I want to know, what I've learned about each the apple and the pumpkin, and then take that information, because the end of this shared reading lesson during the week, you'll bring in that information to complete this activity. Teach. Here the teacher models or explains the precise teaching point by using a familiar text as you explain or show examples. This is the I do part of the gradual release. Readers will be comparing two different informational texts. We will begin using this KWL to share our knowledge. Then we'll use this Venn diagram, the apple and pumpkin, to compare these texts. We want to see if apples and pumpkins are connected. Here's your teaching point. We can tell how people, events, or ideas are connected by comparing. Once we have gathered out our information about each thing, we can use this Venn diagram to compare them. Students will need to watch and listen as you do these things and fill in that information. It's very important that they see the connection and that you model this explicitly. Here's your active engagement. Here the readers try the teaching point through guided practice. Now it's your turn to try. Reteach or restate that teaching point here. This is the you do. Now it's time to apply their learning. Bring out the apple and the pumpkin Venn diagram. The focus will be on their thinking and connections made while I was reading during the week. You'll discuss each one. Start with the pumpkin or the apple And what you want them to do is think about the things, review some of the things that they've learned, and then pair and share. I want them to be able to share a fact or two about the apple. When you're done, you're going to stop and then compare that information. Give them time to go and review the pumpkin. Give them time to think. Have them pair and share. Notice a couple of things that they've done. Come back, and then you're going to be sharing that knowledge. Give that setup time and give them that opportunity, maybe 10 seconds, 20 seconds max, but you're going to want to have those structured pieces in place. End this part by restating your teaching point. Readers, you can tell how these things are connected by the knowledge we shared on this diagram. Here's your link. Here we set up children to transfer that teaching point to their independent reading and writing. So readers, this week we've read informational text about apples and pumpkins. We noticed new text features and we used the KWL to organize our thinking. Then readers, we use this Venn diagram to make connections. So you have some information here. Here's a student one, or you can use that one, or you can use this one that's teacher created. Either one are great opportunities. End this lesson by naming the teaching point. We can tell how people, events, or ideas are connected by using this Venn diagram. A skill needed to make sure that you can be successful with this lesson is that this lesson assumes that your students will have an understanding of a crucial classroom strategy. That first is being an understanding how to describe the connections between those two things. Here I put this here because when you compare something, you are telling how something is similar or alike. When you're contrasting something, you are telling how they're different. This I found on Pinterest. I found it really important. I use this in my classroom, and it gives them an opportunity. That language that's there, it models the Venn diagram and provides them a modeling point and an anchor chart to look at your lesson. Here's your formative assessment piece. You have your plan, your teach, your evaluate and act, your exit ticket, and then a quick check for understanding, and then how you'll revisit this or revise as needed, giving the next opportunity to go through a compare and contrast. When you're planning, notice and name the expectation you're looking for understanding. When you're teaching, you can facilitate this discussion, find things that are similar and things that are different about the apple and pumpkin. And again, create that chart, list some noticings from the informational text. Your exit ticket can be, you can tell something that describes a connection between the apple and pumpkin. One thing that I like to do before I do that exit ticket is do a quick check. And what I like to do is using my fingers, have children show one finger, I don't get it, I need more help. Show 2 fingers, I kind of get it but need some support. 3 fingers, I've got it. 4 fingers, I got it, and I can teach a friend. Based on that, it's going to give you an opportunity in how you want to move forward. Your exit ticket can still have them describe something, but if you're going to provide an activity or a project for them to do, this is going to give you a quick check of those you can send off to start, or some that might need to stay back with a quick strategy group, or have an opportunity to revisit at another time. Here are your anchor standards and the connections that you've made during the course of this lesson. Obviously, you have your informational 1, 2, and 3. You have your speaking and language activities that are here and standards, then also your writing standard. What I'd like you to do and suggest is try to find some ways to integrate these standards in daily activities. Multiple opportunities and exposures in our content standards promote success across the curriculum. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this module on comprehension in kindergarten using informational text. My hope is that you'll take this information and make it your own and apply these ideas to make your students become successful readers.